washes are now dry. As you can see under close cam, even not close cam, all the washes around the brass details and whatnot have dried. Our red coats have dried as well there. So everything is settled down quite nicely. What we're going to do now is work on the reds a bit more. And we're going to try and use our brighter red. And let me see. In this case, it's going to be Games Workshop's Blood Red. So what we're going to do is give a couple of coats to the red stripe on the shoulder and to the red shield as well on the front. We're going to take our 5-0 brush, and what we're going to do is dip it into the red here, into our blood red, take a wee bit of water, thin it out a little, and then we're just going to start applying maybe just 1 or 2 thin coats to the shoulder pad, which will start to brighten that up, and we'll just add some more water to that. Give it a nice thin coat. And just being quite gentle with the brush, try and get a nice smooth coat. Just work our way down to the bottom of the shoulder pad and back up, like so, and then round onto the shield as well, and we'll just do the same thing. I'll just apply some red into there. Trying to be as gentle as possible with the red paint. And that'll do. We can apply either a red wash or maybe a very thin brown wash to that, just to help tone that down a little more. And back onto the shoulder pad, we'll have a look how that's doing. And maybe just apply a little bit more just to these edges. Again, just trying to aim for a good consistent coat, like so. So with that done, we'll rinse our brush off. We're then going to apply a highlight to the face using the flat flesh from Yellow, which is 955. And we're just going to go over some of the higher details on the face, just along the nose, along the eyebrow, and just something along the lines like that. And what we're also going to do now is maybe just a little bit of dry brushing. I'm just going to spread those colours out a little bit. Something along the lines like that, just to bring the higher details into a bit more contrast. I'll just rinse the brush off again. What we're now going to do is take some Adeptus Battle Grey, and we're now going to paint his beard and his hair. Just do it nice and grey, nothing fancy. And once again, we're going to use the 5-0 brush for this. Just going to dip into the cap and just pick out his beard in the grey. bit of water to the brush and work our way out along the hair, the braids there. Like so. And rotate it around a little bit and get the other side of the beard there and the hair. We'll just check, make sure we got everything that we needed to there. Maybe just around the back of the top there. Like so. And that'll do for his hair. So with that done, we're going to take a little bit of our darker red from the palette and we're going to apply it just to the inside of the mouth. Just a tiny little bit. That done as well. We're going to look back round to the shoulder pad. And with that being enough red on it for my liking, we're then going to add some brass edges to that. So we're just going to take a run of brass down either side. Again, just taking it from the palette, from our wet palette. Using the 5-0 brush, we just need to find a start point and just work a line up the edge, trying to keep it as consistent as possible all the way up to the top, and then same on the other side. So we'll just start from about there and just work our way up, which is turning out to be a little wavy. Just add a little more paint to that. And on the other side we can even that up by widening that stripe as well. So a little off, but we'll tidy that up now. And we'll add another quick little coat of red just to try and even it out a little. That ought to do it. So something nice and simple, and I think while we're at that, we'll take another little coat of red over that shield. Just a few little swipes, just vertically up and down. Like so. So you can see our guy is starting to take shape now. Just tidy up our brush again there. And we'll have a look around and see what we could do next. So we're thinking our next step along, we're going to take some Yellow white, which is 951 white. And what our next step is going to be is we're going to try and put 2 white dots into his eyes. Again, we're going to maybe use a smaller brush this time, or at least a finer bristle brush. No, we're just going to stick with the 5-0. So just taking straight from the palette, rotating the brush so that it's thinnest at the point. And right now we need to be very gentle and take a lot of patience. Like so. It does take a lot of concentration now to get a consistent dot onto the eye. And then from the palette again, rotate around a little bit and do the other eye. So that was a bit more of a manic eye there. So what we can do now is add a slightly bigger dot to the other side. Just to try and even the eyes up a little bit, as you can see. So then there's going to be a black dot placed on those later before the end. And we'll just clean the brush up. And what we're going to do while we're waiting for that white to dry is take some Games Workshop Snot Green 6139, and we're going to do the 2 lenses up on his shoulders. So we're just going to dip into the tub again for this. Just apply a little bit of water. Like so. And as carefully as we can, just a green dot on that lens. Like so. So something nice and simple. So with that done, we're going to take some more of our black, and what we're going to do is on the outside of that gold line on the front of the shoulder pad, we're going to thin that down again just to make it a little more delicate. So on that line, just wipe some black over onto it. Not too much. Just enough to thin that line down a little better. Like so. So that's starting to even up those lines a little better now. If we tidy up our brush again. And we're going to try and thin the brush down as much as possible, and then we're going to add the black dots to the centers of the eyes. So again, a small amount as possible. And get in tight to the model So not much there. Around to the other side. Like so. So that adds a bit more character to the model. He may look a little insane, but it does take time and practice and is always well worth it when it's done. So we're going to try and dirty the face up a little bit more as well. For that we're going to take a little black wash, a little paint wash, a very thin black, in fact even thinner than that. It's nearly as thin as I can make it, and we're just going to brush it over the face. Again, this should help settle into recesses a bit better. When that's dry, you should look a little bit more scruffy and a little more dirty. At the same time, we're going to take a black paint wash and we're going to put it over the hair. Just to darken his hair down a little bit so he doesn't look too old. Like so. And just round the other side. That should do it. So our final steps, we're going to apply some transfers to the model. Now there's tons and tons to pick from. You can see that takes up the entire camera. So we're going to try and pick something to go onto the shield, and we're going to try and pick something to go on to the shoulder pad. So looking at the decal sheet, these skulls with wolf skulls crosses, we're going to take one of those and put it onto the shield at the front. Now we're going to use something called Humbrol Decal Fix for the transfers. This will help the transfer adhere to the actual paint, and what we need to do with it is take a brush, put a layer of it on to the model first, apply the transfer and put another layer over on the top. After 24 hours that's dry and that decal should be really nicely fixed down. So what we'll do is, we'll take our 4-0 brush, we'll dip it into the decal fix, and we're just going to apply a layer of it to the red here. Just a very quick run over on the brush, and same on the shoulder pad down the red stripe. So down the whole red stripe from top to bottom. And while that is starting to settle down, we're going to cut out the transfers that we need. Put that to the side. So we'll take the skull with the crossbones. And cut it out with our craft knife. And what we need to do at this point is we need to dip it into the water in the cup. We're also going to choose a transfer for the shoulder, and I'm thinking of just simply taking one of these prancing wolves here. So we'll just cut that out. And same routine, dip it into the water, and then we're going to set it down on the palette. Now hopefully by this stage this one is ready to go. So if we can use the craft knife and it starts to slide on the paper. Now if we dip the craft knife into the water and slide the transfer actually onto the knife edge, and under the camera, what we should be able to do now is, if I take another brush and dip it in water. Hold the decal or the transfer over. Shimmy it to the very edge of the knife. This will be footery. Like so. So dipping the knife into the water, or dipping, not dipping. We can slide the transfer across. And it should now sit into place. More or less. It may be a little rough at this moment. What we'll do is do some adjustments to it. We'll try and line it up there as best we can. Like so. So while that's starting to settle, we'll do the same drill with our prancing wolf. And we'll do a similar drill with it. What we'll do is use our fingers to slide it to the bottom of the transfer sheet and then slide it onto the model like so. This may be a little bit big for our red stripe, but that isn't too bad there. It's just nicely framed by the gold, you can see. So what we'll do now is we'll take a little bit of kitchen roll and we'll dab the water off, and then we'll apply our final layer of decal fix. So with the transfers on, everything's settling down quite nicely. What we need to do now is paint the teeth in the mouth of our Space Wolf. Now there's a particular way that I need to do this because it's a bit awkward doing it on the helping hand. So we'll take it off the stand, move the stand out of the way, and I'll show you how I hold a model when I'm not using a helping hand. So holding it by the base, as you can see, trying to keep it all in focus, and what I'll do is place my small finger on the model and use that as an anchor point so that I can manipulate the model while keeping the brush hand still. So, dip our brush into a little bit of water and dip it into our white paint, taking the tiniest amount possible. And what we need to do now is hold the model as steady as possible, maybe just clasp it a bit tighter. We need to just do the tiniest line of white just along, just below the lip there. Like so, and around the bottom as well. And to add a little bit more paint to the brush. Remember to hold the model nice and firmly. And try and work the paint around. Without getting too much on the brush. Like so. So that's just added a little bit more depth to his mouth there. So if we bring our stand back in, just clamp him back onto that. Like so. And what we'll do now is we'll go on to the hair and we'll add some highlights to that. So the paint we now need to do the hair is Games Workshop's Fortress Grey 6153. So what we'll do is we'll take a smallish brush. We'll take our, let me see, I think this is another 30 or 40, and it's got slightly damaged bristles on it, so it's not as good for detail work as it used to be. But if we use it as a small dry brush and we just wipe it off on the hand a little bit, or even just as an overbrush, we'll then see about getting some highlights onto that hair. So as you can see, still using my finger as an anchor point in some cases anyway, and we just wipe along the length of that braid, which is picking out the details quite nicely, and do some along the beard on the side, just to bring out a couple of highlights. Like so. Now we work around to the back of the model as well. And we'll just do the same again. So not too much effort required on that. And you can see we now have a relatively mean looking face, something nice and simple obviously. Alright, so if we clean the brush off once again here, we're going to use this brush again, and we're going to take some white, just a tiny amount, and we're going to add a small white dot to the top of that lens, hopefully. So again, we've got to be quite gentle, just to add the smallest dot to the top. Like so. And there as well. So that'll just highlight the lens a little bit, make it look a little bit more glassy. There's plenty of other methods to do that by going into a lot more detail, but I think we're okay at that. So generally now we're just going to run around and we're just going to do a few highlights, tidy up a few little areas. It's like some of the brass details, some of the details around the transfers, that sort of thing. But first we are going to do the brass. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to look at the likes of the wolf claws, and we're just going to highlight some of the higher areas on the wolf claw symbols. So there, along the snout of the wolf, little bits just here and there. Anything that will brighten that up just a little bit. Around to the front, and we can get a good shot of the chest plate, and we're just going to tidy up the wolf on the chest plate a little, just by adding a little bit of that, which is starting to highlight it a little. We can also see from a previous step that we missed the very muzzle of the wolf, so we've highlighted that as well, and just run a little bit over anywhere where the light seems to complement brighter areas, anything that seems to stand out a little bit more. We're going to give our bolts on the knee pad another little run. Just to tie them up, and a little bit around there and on the chain. And probably on the ring around his belt as well. A little bit on each wolf head. And we'll also try and tidy up the icons along the knee. I'll try and highlight them a bit more. and just lightly over the wolf head, like so, just to show it up a little bit better. And around to the other wolf claw here. This one doesn't look too bad, but we're just going to add in the same positions anyway. So around there, down the snout of the wolf, out the side a little bit, along there, and up the top edge of the ear. And same on the other side, just there, and a little bit there, to let the shadows cast a bit more naturally. So with a few more little details added there, we'll wipe our brush off. And what we need to do now, that our decal fix is now dried down, we're now just going to take some black wash, and we're going to dull that whole thing down and make sure that the transfers have settled. So if I can find my bit of black wash and just give it a little bit of a coat over the transfers just to help settle them down. This will also help bring down the glossiness of the actual transfer sealer as well. And we just try and make sure that we work it on the whole shoulder nice and evenly. So we're not going to have any awkwardly glossy parts when that's dry. And we'll do the same on the front little shield. That may look a little nasty until the sealer has actually settled down and the washes have settled down. While we're waiting for all that, we'll just continue with our tidy up, and we're going to take the two power cables at the back and give them a heavy black wash, just to help tidy up the overbrushing that we did earlier. Like so, and say just around the knee pads, around the back of the knees, just to settle that black in, that black paint wash that we put on earlier. And at this point as well, we can start to go mad with the black wash, and we can start adding more shadows to areas that we think require it, like at the top of this leg, just into there. And let me see, around the top of the waist as well, just to start to dull it down a little, start to break up all the nice shiny lines that we have in places here. So let's see what else we can do here at this point. Well, we can add some more black wash to around these panels. Wipe away a little excess there from the panel itself. After all, we are looking for something a bit more rugged, a bit more gritty looking. So just playing with the black wash more than anything, we'll just add it into panel lines, add it to armor joints, that sort of thing. Anywhere we think we can get away with a bit more shadow, probably up in that shoulder joint as well, over the fingers of the the fists. In fact, we can give them a heavier wash to help shade them in a bit more. Let's see, and or possibly around the bottom of the knee pad there. Give it a bit more definition. And probably around the other wolf claw as well, and the underside of that one. So just a good heavy black wash. Tidy up that power cable a bit more. Add a bit more around the elbow joints as well. Let me see, anywhere else. We can just jab some up in underneath the shoulder pad. And quite possibly around that elbow joint as well. Just in there. Like so. And if we want, we could add a bit more to this panel line on the top. And what we'll do is we'll water it down a little. And just gently work it into that panel line. Like so. So that should give it a bit more definition there. If we also want, we could add a little bit to the crux terminatus on the shoulder. Again, we'll try and just water it down a little more. We don't want it to take away too much. That should probably do it, just add a bit more darker shading there. And that should be pretty much that for the washes there. So what we can also do now is we're going to take some bolt gun metal and we're going to start to scratch the armor and add a few chips here and there. So we'll just to take straight out of the tub again, just add a bit of water into the cap, and we're probably going to dry brush this or just overbrush very slight areas. So wipe the majority of the paint off on your hand, as you can see, and on the model. Let's see somewhere good. Could add just a bit to that hip plate, and a bit down the front of the leg, and over the knee pad. Just little bits, not going too mad with it. Just enough to show a little bit of wear and tear. Like so. Now we just slide that across. And possibly up around the top of that area where his head sits, and on the top corner. Anything that seems like it would jut out enough to be bumped or scraped at some point. And possibly around the edge of the shoulder pad, just along the bottom edge maybe. It's maybe a bit too much. And right along those edges where the fist meets the actual armour of the wrist. Or do something similar on the other side. And just add a bit more paint to the brush. And around the back, let's see if we can get a good view in this. Just add some little bits and pieces just around the corners. So not too much, trying not to go over the top with this. It's very tempting to, trust me. Something around like that. We've just pulled a bit of wash where we didn't want it to be. It's alright, it could always be grease or dirt. Something that just tidies up the model, well, dirties up the model a little bit, like so. So we're back round to the front of the model again, and I think we are pretty much done, except, let me see, if we take some bleach bone now, and we're going to dry brush our little wolf tail, just that little bit there, just add a bit of definition to that. So we just take from the tub again, just spread it out over our hand. Maybe use a better brush, as this one's already had metallic paint on it. We'll set that to the side. So we just dip into the paint, just wipe it off on the hand, and then gently run your brush over it, just to pick out some of the higher points. We don't need to coat this whole part in paint. We're just trying to add a bit of definition to the actual part. It's becoming increasingly harder to see what I'm doing under there. There we go. You just want to lightly brush over it with the bleach bone, like so. So that's added a bit more depth to that part. What we can also do now is just add maybe a light Devlin mud wash to that, just to tone the bleach bone down a little more.